We East Oakland stepped to college and we came all the way from Oakland, California, 94621, to come talk to you guys about building educational communities. And basically we want you guys to take notes, and we want you guys to walk away with learning something from us, because like coming from our communities, like this is life or death to us. So I'm Daryl McDaniel, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the statement of the problem. Okay, so in my senior year in high school, we learned about Assata Shakur's autobiography. In most schools, people don't learn about Assata. Why? Because she talks about fighting back against the very people that oppressed us. She talks about starting revolutionary movements. She talks about basically bettering our community. And one of my favorite quotes from her is, we have to learn that we're beautiful as people. We have to relearn something that was forcefully taken from us. We have to learn about black power. What is black power? What does black power mean to us? As people, we are more powerful when we unite and come together as one. And finally, we learned the importance of coming together and being active. One of the major problems with education provided to our communities is it doesn't want us to be great. Historically, we come from great people with great civilizations and the legacy of brilliancies. It begins with slavery, when the European man came and stole us from our land and took over our land. And stole our people. We have been brainwashed to believe dominance through miseducation as well as poverty. Also by telling lies about downgrading our people and our culture and where we come from. For example, the textbooks in our schools, they don't really prepare us for survival skills after high school. What are they really teaching us? Is it going to help benefit us in the future? When we want real answers in schools from our teachers, we don't get them. Well, basically coming from Oakland, California, we went to Fremont High, and I used to ask my teachers why we don't have job readiness classes, classes to prepare us to know how to wear the attire for job interviews, how to answer job interview questions. You know what my teachers told me? They said they don't know why we don't have these classes that will help benefit us in the future after high school. Also, we get taught about everybody else's history instead of our own history and our own culture and where we come from. It wasn't until college that I learned the truth about Christopher Columbus, who was also falsely portrayed as an American hero. This man even has a national holiday that everybody takes off from, but in reality, he's a terrorist. In reality, this man stole slaves, beat and killed native people, all for the riches, all for the love of money. He killed native people not for anything right. He killed them for not finding a certain amount of gold for him and his riches, and that's just totally wrong. This man was a villain. And basically in schools, they teach us that their heroes are our heroes, but in reality, their heroes are our oppressors. And we don't get taught about this. They brainwash us from kindergarten all the way up to believe people like him are our heroes, and it needs to stop. The education we are getting in schools doesn't really prepare us for jobs after high school. We need for ourselves to survive. We don't want help from the government or anybody outside of our community. We want to help our own community members out and start our own movements. Basically, I'm going to say it like this. Schools are a reflection on society, and society is a reflection on schools. Meaning, if we have more younger people working after high school, we'll have a less violent community. Also, we'll help better our economy. And lastly, people will wake up with a sense of purpose in life. Okay, I'm going to work. This is what I'm doing. Things will be better. Okay, the greatness is seen. Part of our greatness is seen through the Black Panthers, which they started their own revolutionary movement in their own community without anyone helping them outside of their community. So basically what they did is they took a stand in their own community. So basically they healed thousands of heroin addicts in their community with acupuncture. With no help from anyone outside of their community, they took a stand. And basically the Zapatistas right here, they did the same thing. They started their own revolutionary movement to fight back against the Mexican government who was trying to jack them for their land through capitalism. Basically they was trying to jack them through their land Basically, they was trying to jack them for their land didn't matter to the Mexican government. By any cost and by any means, even not even preserving their own human life. So basically the government didn't care about them. They wanted to take their resources and use it for their own benefits, basically. And so basically what the Zapatistas did in this picture, as you can see, they start gathering people from all continents, no matter what your race is, no matter what your culture is, it didn't matter. They all came together to resist neoliberalism, which is a form of global capitalism. So they started their own revolutionary movements. Okay. In present day Oakland, where we all come from, we have been jacked for our land. We have been jacked for our resources. We come from rich lands full of resources, yet our people are still broke. Why? Because corporations are taking our resources and using it for their personal gain, and it's wrong. Also, we have been jacked for our dignity, so we look at our differences in negative ways, and it needs to stop. Okay, this is a picture of my high school right here in Oakland, California, Fremont High. And like in East Oakland, California, like we come from like traumatized communities. Like on the way to school, I'll tell you a couple things I used to see on my way to high school. Like I see like prostitutes on the corners. I see like drug dealers on the corner. I even saw people getting robbed on my way to school. Some days coming from school, I had to jump out of the way of flying bullets in broad daylight. So we coming from a traumatized community to this right here. And it doesn't look very, very pleasant, as you guys can see. That's a policeman with a loaded gun locking our gates, and we have security guards. So the structure of our school is not humanizing. It makes you feel very, very unwelcome. And like, we want schools to be like our second home. We want to feel comfortable in schools. So like, if I don't feel comfortable in the place I go to every day, how am I supposed to learn? How am I supposed to help everybody else at? I can't. So basically, we have cameras all around our schools watching us more like prison policies instead of educational policies. Okay, high schools does not give us students the pipeline to jobs after high school, but they are rather invest more time and more money into this thing called school to prison pipeline. So basically, what schools to prison pipeline is, they anticipate on us going to prison because of our test scores. So when the kids that have the lowest test score, reading, writing, math, etc., basically they see them as a number. And that number goes to how many more prisons they're going to make for us, because they anticipating us to fail, basically, and it's wrong. So instead of investing more time and money to school to prison pipelines, we need to invest more time and money into jobs after high school to help our community, economy, and so people can have a sense of purpose in life. Okay, high schools does not give us students the steps to know how to give back to our community or come back after we graduate to help benefit our community. They just give us our high school diploma and let us walk right off the stage. In summary, what I want all you guys to take from me is that basically from all angles in schools, it needs to be restructured. From the structure of the schools, we want more humanizing school structures instead of dehumanizing school structures. We want to feel comfortable when we come to school. We want school to be our second home, like I said. Also, we need to restructure the teacher training. Why is a teacher teaching us this? How is a teacher teaching us this? And how it will benefit us in the future after high school. Also, we need to restructure our discipline policies. We want more problem-posing policies instead of dehumanizing policies. And now Male will talk to you guys about the literature we read from our research questions.
Thank you, Daryl. Hi, my name is Mile, and like Daryl said, I will be talking to you about the literature we reviewed. We studied 4 different traditions, but I will be mainly focusing on the Zapatista and Black Panther parties and the Kemet and Ma'at tradition. We've come to notice that these traditions have similar rituals, beliefs, and practices, that parallels existed between these traditions, including parallel struggles, parallel ways of organizing themselves in their society, and parallel ways of healing their communities. For the Ma'at tradition, there were articles handed out. We mainly focused on the 42 principles, which was the history context of their philosophy. And for the Black Panther Party, we studied and learned of their 10-point program, which laid out in clear terms both of what the Black Panthers wanted and what they believed. And I quote, We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. And we want education that teaches us our history and our role played in this present-day society. Resources used for this tradition were the books The Zapatistas, Zapatista Encuentro, and the Black Panther Party, The Black Panthers Speak. The jigsaw strategy. So what we did was we split it to different groups, we studied and learned other traditions, and we just got a good feeling of what they were and how they felt like. And then we came together and taught each other what we learned. After analyzing these 4 philosophical traditions, we came up with a theoretical framework based on 3 principles: autonomy, harmony and healing, and solidarity. The Black Panthers best embodied the concept of autonomy with their 10-point program, which then again reads: we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. The Kemet and Ma'at tradition best embodied the concepts of harmony and healing. In Kemet, people sought to live by these 42 principles, which included: I have not done iniquity, I have not laid waste to the land, I have not polluted myself, I have never fouled the water, and I have done no hurt unto man, nor wrought harm unto beasts. As you can see, these principles emphasize harmony within oneself and environment, which in turn led to a healthy life. And finally, the Mexica concept of conformidad, unión, and conquista, which built the roadmap for solidarity. In order to build solidarity, one must first develop conformidad, which is translated as consensus. Once the consensus is reached, the community can then move in unión, or in unity. And moving in one unit helps the community achieve conquista. Not to be confused with the Western concept of conquest, but to be defined as commitment, loyalty, and obligation to help each other. Now I'll pass it on to my bro Jorge, who will outline the methodology we use.
So I'll be introducing the methodology. As part of our data collection, we conducted 98 surveys. 67% of those survey takers were 13 to 19 years old. The female to male ratio was not that far from even, with the percentage of the female survey takers being 57 and males being 43. Mostly Latinos, Blacks, Asians, and Pacific Islanders took our survey, which is not surprising because those ethnicities make up the majority of our community. We use Michael Burroway's extended case method. The steps are: review existing theory, design a research project designed to find confirming and counter instances, and the third step is use counter instances to rewrite existing theory. We triangulated our data. Every claim we made was supported by survey data, observation data, and interview data. We interviewed others from the Black Panther Party, Mexica tradition, teachers and cultural workers that are working in Oakland, and lastly, students. We wanted to measure the presence, needs, and importance of these principles in our community. So we asked questions like, how important is it to teach students solidarity? And they chose from not important to very important. We also critically analyzed our textbooks, and this helped us understand what they want us to learn and what we must do to enhance our own learning. We also collected our data from Facebook and Instagram, and we noticed how a lot of students are aware of how important it is to get an education and how teachers are not always engaged in teaching. So, so Najee will introduce the findings now.
I'm Najee. Excuse me. I'm Najee, and I'm going to be introducing our findings. So, our first claim is based on autonomy. According to our data, we need a more autonomous education. Our current state of education keeps us dependent on the system of power. The same system of power that has conquered and destroyed my people. The same system that has stolen pretty much all of our land and resources. That very system is now brainwashing us, teaching us what they want us to learn. That they're superior, we are inferior, and we need to become adhesive to them. The following 2 examples are part of 2 different educational policies that demonstrate false charity, which is, according to Paulo Freire, helping people in ways that keep them oppressed. The first policy is the No Child Left Behind Act, signed by Bush. The second is Race at the Top, signed by Obama. Now, you may notice off top that the language used appears to be beneficial to students. I mean, who wouldn't agree with a policy that doesn't want to leave a child behind, with a policy that wants to help us race to the top? But if you pay close attention to it, you'll realize that they're only keeping us more oppressed. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 increased standard-based education and standardized testing. Now, if you look into the California State Learning Standards, you notice that they're Eurocentric, sexist, and doesn't even mention homosexuality. Standardized testing is pretty much the way that the system measures our ability to regurgitate the cultural lies and biases in this racist curriculum. Race to the Top is the No Child Left Behind Act on steroids, and it came 8 years later. It enforces standardized testing by rewarding and punishing teachers and principals based on their students' test scores, meaning if teachers and principals don't improve their students' ability to do well on an impressive test, they can be fired. Now, it's very important to understand the significance of these two educational policies because it's basically legalized mental slavery. The No Child Left Behind Act justifies standardized brainwashing, while Race at the Top punished teachers and principals for not brainwashing successfully. But let's be real. The brainwashing has gone on since we were colonized. They beat, brainwashed, and enslaved Africans, and they beat, brutalized, and enslaved pretty much all of our ancestors for that matter. Our current state of education is not teaching us to become successful, free, independent, and self-determined people. A system led by predominantly rich white men. Now notice that I said predominantly, not all, because Obama apparently is not white. But they're teaching us what they want us to learn. They are pretty much like, they're teaching us what they feel like we should learn as dispossessed people of color. And since we apparently cannot depend on that system to teach us, we need to create our own autonomous educational institutions. The system makes that even harder though, because if they can't even teach us what we need to know, how are they supposed to teach us how to educate ourselves properly? And do they even want us to? I mean, think about it. Anytime we do create ways to educate and humanize ourselves, it's being shut down in some way, shape, or form. And the Black Panther Party is a perfect example of that. Our second claim is based on healing and harmony. Our data suggests that our community wants students to be taught how to heal. Unfortunately, we're not taught our history, which is like being taught our strength. Not being taught our history kills our strength, which harms our mind, body, spirit, and culture. We're then left traumatized when we begin to stress. Stress leads to type 2 diabetes, depression, heart disease, and many other health effects that affect low-income people of color in specific. In other words, this hegemonic system contributes more to our death and less to our lives. We asked our survey takers, how important is it for an education to teach students to heal? And 87% of them agreed that schools should play an important role. We then asked, what role should schools play in teaching students harmonious ways of living? And 86% of them agreed that schools should play an important role. Our data suggests that students can be taught to heal from traumatic experiences, and it's very important to community members that the educational system teaches them to do so. If students were being taught how to heal from traumatic experiences, we will feel a lot more harmonious in our ways of living because we would actually have a way to find peace in our lives from all the BS that we deal with on a daily basis. Now, our last claim is based on solidarity. Our data suggests that community members want students to be taught solidarity, but again, we're just not taught it. We're kept divided by being put into situations to where it's obviously not enough for everybody. And everybody has to survive, so how are we supposed to get it? We're gonna get it however we can. Finally, we asked, how important is it to teach students solidarity? And 84% of survey takers felt that it was important. This suggests that the overwhelming majority of our community members want students to be taught solidarity, but activities just aren't designed for us to develop solidarity amongst each other. Instead, we're taught divide and conquer. An example of how divide and conquer exists in my community is shown through a conversation that I saw on Facebook. This one involves an issue of homosexuality, something that's often avoided or just simply dismissed. So in this picture, you see a post from a male saying, and I quote, "Bruh, every now and then I find myself attracted to a dude," unquote. By him saying this, and people not being supportive of him, shows the lack of solidarity that we share as a community. The fact that what he said was meant to be a joke also shows the lack of solidarity that we share as a community, because we normalize this divide and conquer through humor as if being gay is somehow funny. So you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with education? Well, society teaches us that being homosexual is a sin. And as I mentioned earlier, textbooks don't even discuss homosexuality or homophobia, let alone teach us how to counter those ideologies. School is a second home for a lot of students, and since this conversation usually can't be had at home for various reasons, it should be able to be had at school. One of my favorite quotes is, "You hate what you fear, and you fear what you don't understand." By having conversation around homosexuality, that might eliminate some hate and fear, creating solidarity. But, again, we're taught to hate and distrust each other, and to love and trust the same hegemonic system that originally stripped us of our self-love, humanity, and respect. And now we'll pass it on to Pine, who will introduce our implications.
Hello everyone. Like Najee said, I'll be doing the implications of our studies. So once we analyzed the state of education in our community, we thought about what should it be and how should we get there. Now, having this framework in my head, the way I went about this is using the metaphor of a tree. To teach this common understanding, we must first teach our kids to be a tree. A tree stands tall, it is deeply rooted, it is nurtured, it blossoms, and it'll be difficult to pull its root out of the ground. When we teach our kids about their ancestors and why they're so important, then they will not be easily moved just like a tree. We can teach our kids to be strong, nurtured, and be deeply rooted in their history, and from there, also learn as they grow. This is what it means for our communities to be successful. We can also think of our community goal as hanging fruits from our own trees. As you can see, there are 3 different levels of hanging fruits. There's the low, the middle, and the high hanging fruit. The first example is the low hanging fruit. And these are things that individuals can do right away. An example of a high hanging fruit is choosing your own destiny. That's what it means to be autonomous, to control your own destiny. But in order to control your own destiny, you have to discipline yourself and restrain yourself from internalizing your oppression. In order to become autonomous, we need to be critically conscious of the existing system and know how to navigate and manipulate the system to our own benefit. In addition to manipulating the system to our own benefit, we have to heal to have harmony. But before we can heal, we have to have knowledge of self. When we are successful of learning self-knowledge, then we can rise to the challenge and teach each other ways to be at peace with ourselves. We must also create an alternative model to the education that harms our culture, mind, body, and spirit, which contributes to the death of our people. These schools can teach us to control our emotions, our thoughts, and our actions, so we will prevent ourselves from easily being manipulated or conquered. This will bring harmony and heal our lives. Lastly, in our schools will teach us solidarity. This is called interdependence in the Tao philosophy. Interdependence is when you can depend on yourself so you can help others. We can all agree that if you can't help yourself, how in the hell are you supposed to help the next person? The next level of the hanging fruit is the middle hanging fruit. Now, these are things that are achievable, but we have to sit down and plan things out. An example of a middle hanging fruit is making their schools serve our community. By making their schools serve our community, we will determine how our education is being taught to us. And by them serving our community, we control the content, the method, and the purpose of our education. Now, we might need the help of a school district or even a charter school to make this happen. When we are successful in learning solidarity in our schools, then we can teach it to our family. And when we teach it to our family, we can then teach it to our community members. As Brother Dave taught us, the more you know, the more we owe. The more we owe back to our community. As we rise, we lift, which means as we get our lives together, we also help our fellow community members. The last stage of the high hanging fruit. As you can see, this will take years and years and years and years to get to, but we can still achieve this goal. An example of a high hanging fruit is building our own schools. But before we can even do this, we have to have control of our own land. Having control of our own land gives us the institutionalized power where we decide what is being taught to our community members. Malcolm X once said, "Only a fool will let his enemy educate his children." This quote is very powerful because in schools in Oakland, California, the oppressor teaches us to oppress each other so that we look at our difference and we do the oppression for the oppressor. In our own schools, we would determine our education about who is teaching us, what is being taught to us, how it's being taught to us, and why it's being taught to us. In other words, we control the content, the method, and the purpose of our education. The long-term goal of our community is to build solidarity with other oppressed people. And the whole point of this build your own community through education is to have forests and forests of fruit trees that stands tall and deeply rooted. Thank you. Now we're going to show you a video based on our research project, Build Your Own Community Through Education. Oh, later. Sorry.